Well, good morning, everybody. It is a Monday. Boy, these weeks go fast. It's the 14th of November, and the elections. Boy, it's only 3 weeks away. And I heard somebody on the TV this morning say 3 weeks to the election, and I was like, boy, they screwed up because it's at least a month away. And I realized, ooh, they're right. That's that's crazy. So let's turn this around for you folks that absolutely have to have the driving view and not me. There you go. I'm doing my 5 mph 4.8. I think I mentioned this a few times. If you're in a place that has really strict like 5 mile per hour speed limits, which are more and more common in RV parks, a little trick I learned, and I learned it from the organization here, I believe, in a newsletter, is put your manual transmission into first gear. And like I'm in first gear right now, and I'm not doing, my foot is off the accelerator, and I'm doing 4.4 miles an hour on a flat stretch. So I don't really need to worry about, because if you're in regular and you have your foot on the accelerator, it's so easy to go faster than 5 miles an hour. 5 miles an hour is pretty slow. Um, so I got to remember when I get started. I usually don't have a problem when I get started. It's when I come into the park, sometimes I forget to downshift into first gear. But this is really reliable. It's it says 59 degrees outside, and you know what? I believe them. I've got my t-shirt on and I'm a little chilly. My dad used to say, "Chilly today, hot tamale." That was my dad's sense of humor for sure. And my dad was not above repeating a joke over and over again for decades. And my dad was not above telling a story. And I got to tell you, his all-time favorite story about me. And for this story to make sense, you have to know that I was to be polite, I was a stocky child. Okay. I was kind of fat as a child. And for those of you who know my backstory, my dad was a single parent, and he hired a series of housekeepers, live-in housekeepers, that took care of me. And one of the most beloved ones that I remember was Angelina Ray, and I used to call her Ray. And she became really concerned for my health and well-being because I wouldn't eat. So she, the little village was less than a mile away where the doctor was. So she rushed me into the doctor, and she said, Doctor, I'm so concerned that he's not eating. And the doctor's response was, he could go a month without eating. And my father loved to tell that story. And it turns out there was nothing wrong with me. I just was a little finicky that morning or something. But he could go a month without eating. That was one of my dad's favorite stories. When my dad died, my brothers and sisters and I were all sitting around the table trying to craft the obituary. And when they one of the lines was, I didn't have much input into that. I was, not that it wasn't welcome, I just didn't have much to say. So my brothers and sisters mostly did the writing. And I have this suspicion it was my sister Annie that came up with this line, but he referred to Dad as a raconteur. And I had no idea what that meant. I was embarrassed to say in front of my brothers and sisters I'd never heard that word before. But it was a raconteur is a gifted storyteller, and my dad certainly was a gifted storyteller. He loved to tell stories. Um, my favorite story about my dad. I'm sorry. It, it's a one word conversation, one word coming from my father is the story. Here's the story. I'm probably in my mid to late 20s and in absolute turmoil over women or a woman or something. I know I was like, I was in the middle of like some angst over a woman, which describes most of my 20s. Um, and I was fishing with him, and we're in the boat, and he's got his back to me. And I said, Dad, do you know anything about women? I'm just asking a general question. I'm looking for knowledge and wisdom. And a lot of time seemed to go by where I got no verbal nor nonverbal response. So I was about to repeat the question thinking Dad's hard of hearing and he didn't hear me. And just before I repeated the question, he didn't even turn around and and keep in mind, this is a Phi Beta Kappa Key, brilliant man, very high IQ. He says, nope. He didn't even turn around. And in that moment, I knew I was screwed. And I was. I'm a licensed therapist, and I barely understand most women that I deal with. I'm in good company with my dad having my answer be nope to that question. Um, some of the earliest memories of my dad, or some of the most persistent and consistent memories, is he would throw a baseball with me constantly after work, after dinner in the backyard. And by the time I was 11 or 12 years old, I was a pretty solid ball player. It didn't last long because my interest didn't hold. But boy, let me tell you, as a 12-year-old, I was a solid ball player. I remember going to Little League tryouts for the Major League, and I could do no wrong in those tryouts. I was going up to bat, and I was knocking out. Uh, uh, I was hitting pitches and going way over the heads of the people in the outfield. I was throwing pitches. I think they had a bucket set up on its side, and I was hitting that bucket with high-speed pitches, and I was out there fielding, and I wasn't missing a thing, and I was on fire. And I was basically surrounded at one point, I remember, by the scouts that were filling out their forms. I was surrounded. They all had clipboards, and they were all asking me what my name was. Uh, and so instantly, I got drafted into the Little League majors, where you wear the full uniform. I was so excited. It was a bank sponsored it, and right before the first practice, I got injured and I couldn't run. So they cut me from the team. And I ended up going to the league where all you get is a t-shirt and a ball cap, right? And so I was the star on that team, let me tell you, when I healed up and I was able to run. And that was that was my best season of baseball ever. I had the golden touch, and that kind of went away. So I miss that. Anyway, going to go into the chiropractor. I'll be back out in a little while. Well, I am out of the chiropractor's office, and a mystery has been solved. So I would say the past 3 weeks or so, my blood pressure has been up. In my chiropractor, it's really a 3-in-1 thing. You go in and you sit with a nurse practitioner and she does an evaluation, vital signs. Then you get your adjustment and then you go into physical therapy. So it's three things that happen. But the nurse practitioner is getting concerned because my blood pressure has been elevated. Usually my blood pressure is great. I'm on a low dose diuretic that, because I did have high blood pressure, I have the diagnosis. But it was consistently, 118 over 76, that was typical. Then suddenly I'm in the 130s, like the 140s. There was one where it was 152 over 112, or just ridiculous numbers. And of course she does her job and goes down asking me 100 questions to try to figure out what has changed. And we keep coming up empty. Now, we had a parallel conversation about, I was having a lot of acid reflux, and she was asking me what I was taking, and I was taking these over-the-counter medications that are called proton pump inhibitors. Well, let's drive. So I don't have to sit in the parking lot and bore you just looking at my face. You can watch me drive. And she's like, oh, no. You do not want to take those proton pump inhibitors for more than 2 weeks. There's a lot of studies that show some pretty severe side effects, and it can be she's like really stressed. She recommended a couple of other medications that were not proton pump inhibitors. And one of them was, that's not fair. I was going to say one of them was Tums, but it wasn't. It was, I can't think of the medication that she had me buy. And I think in a video I bought it, and it was pretty expensive. And I've been taking it, but it hasn't been completely doing the trick. So a friend of mine said, hey, Tums, that doesn't hurt you. It does pretty good. So I bought a bunch of Tums, and every time I would feel like the discomfort, I'd pop a Tums. So I realized that I hadn't told her about the Tums. And she said, how many do you think you're taking a day? And I go, oh my gosh, probably 10, 15. And she's like, oh my gosh. She said, there's a ton of salt in Tums, and I'm eating them like candy. And so I'm introducing a ton of really a lot of salt into my body, and that it makes perfect sense that that's what's increasing my blood pressure. So there you go. That's what's going on. I noticed recently, I'm sticking to kind of the medical topic here, that up until recently, when you go to the Medicare site to look at the cost of the various supplement plans and Part D plans and things of that nature, that up until recently it was only 2024, but I guess with open enrollment, they have an option now. What's going to be the cost for 2025? So I got verification, number one, that the Part A and B part that comes out of your Social Security is going up to $185 a month. So that's a for certain. Then I wanted to get Part G, which is the Cadillac of the supplement plans, and the lowest cost one that I can get is $135. And then the Part D for my drugs, I have an expensive drug that I take for type 2 diabetes. And so I ended up having to get an AARP related policy that's $89 a month. So you take the 185, so my monthly cost for health insurance is going to be 185 plus the 135 plus the 89. That's a good chunk of change. That's over $400 a month. So I had to inject this in here after the fact because I started, as you can see, I was explaining the costs, both now for my medical and what it's going to cost with Medicare. And I really got twisted up. So I went back inside, I organized all the costs. So I'll explain it to you right now. First, I'm going to talk about what um, things cost now, today, on an average monthly basis. The cost of my catastrophic insurance with a real high deductible is zero. I don't pay anything for that. But what that means is I have to pay out of pocket for medication. My medication costs me $275 a month. My chiropractor appointments cost me $167 on average per month. And so that's a total of $442 per month. Now, when I turn 65 this coming year, I'll be eligible for Medicare, and Medicare Part A and B is $185 a month. And you don't have any choice about that. That just comes right out of your Social Security check. And I'm going to be doing a supplement program, Part G, which is the most expensive and the Cadillac of all the supplement or extra things that you can buy. So that's $135 a month. And I have to buy a medication insurance plan. And for the medication that I'm on, it's going to be $89 a month. And instead of costing $275 a month, my medications will cost me $23.50 a month. So that's a total of $432.50. So, I'm saving $9.50 a month over what I'm spending now. And it's like, wow, that's pretty remarkable. And it really is that it's that close. The thing that I'm getting for that, I'm paying the extra for the Part G and Part D, is I'm getting a lot for that, because basically anything could happen to me. And no matter what, my total out of pocket, because I have this fancy Plan G, is $221 a year. So I could have a $500,000 hospital bill and I'm going to pay $221. So I could reduce the cost by $135 a month by just getting like an advantage plan for $0, but and then buying the separate Part D, or a lot of the advantage plans have Part D. It would be complex, but I would be open to a pretty large deductible. And more important than that is that when you go with an advantage plan, the insurance company that you enroll through has the power to approve or decline your claims. It has the power to say what hoops you need to jump through to get specialist care. And if you buy a supplement plan like the Part G that I am, all the decisions like that are made by Medicare, and all the insurance company does is they're paid to administrate the program. So I think it's worth it. I think it's a great deal, $432.50 a month for everything that I know I need right now and for everything I could potentially need in the future. I hope this clarifies that. If you're seeing this video and there's a part where I'm sitting at my desk talking about the costs, that means I cut out a bunch of stuff sitting in the car that I was getting wrong. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Thanks for hanging in this long, and I will see you tomorrow.